The call came in just after dusk. Rangers at Yosemite's Valley District office were used to odd radio chatter. Hikers reporting thunder that wasn't on radar. Tourists saying they'd seen lights in the cliffs. But this one froze the room. Possible emergency beacon north of Tenaya Canyon, the dispatcher said. Repeating code 212, standard distress pattern, origin unknown. The year was 2029, and that beacon, faint and intermittent, traced back to coordinates that hadn't registered human activity in over 6 years. Not since Daniel Reese, age 34, vanished somewhere beyond the Mirror Lake trailhead and became another name on the park's cold case board. Footage cuts between rangers triangulating the signal and archived photos. Daniel, in 2019, smiling beside his rust-red Jeep, topo maps spread on the hood. Narrator tone, measured, factual, curious. Daniel Reese wasn't new to the wilderness. Born in Flagstaff, Arizona, he'd grown up with high-altitude air in his lungs and a compass clipped to his belt loop. Friends described him as obsessively careful. Before every solo trip, he'd mark waypoints on laminated maps, label food bags by day, and text coordinates to his sister, Leah. His 2019 plan was simple. 3-day hike starting from Mirror Lake, overnight near Snow Creek, return via the old service road by Monday noon. On Sunday morning, the Rangers logged perfect weather. Clear, 72 degrees Fahrenheit, light wind. By Tuesday evening, Daniel's Jeep still sat untouched at the trailhead. Inside, half-drunk water bottle, GPS charger, folded park permit, no phone, no Daniel. The first 72 hours brought every asset Yosemite could spare: canine units, drones, thermal scans. Even borrowed gear from the Air National Guard. Ranger Tom Leary still remembers the chill when they realized the dogs kept circling the same patch of granite, an open wash leading into the north rim of Tenaya Canyon, locally nicknamed the Bermuda of Yosemite. It's not superstition, Leary said in his 2020 debrief. It's just terrain that eats people. Tenaya's ravines drop suddenly, sometimes 60 feet straight down, masked by pine needles and shadow. No fresh slides, no blood, no torn fabric, just a single boot print near a line of cairns and a faint scrape mark, like someone dragging metal on rock. After day 10, the operation shifted from search to recovery. By day 18, the paperwork called it suspended. Leah Reese refused the word suspended. She printed flyers with her brother's face, short beard, green eyes, caption, "Experienced hiker missing. Reward for information." She mailed copies to climbing gyms, ranger stations, and post office. Even the post office at Tuolumne Meadows. A year passed. Tourists came and went. The case faded behind newer tragedies: flash flood drownings, lightning fatalities, COVID closures. But Leah kept his gear in a cedar trunk by her couch. The spare compass, the patch tent fly, and a black notebook labeled Trail Echo 19. Inside the notebook were fragments of Daniel's last recorded hikes, coordinates, sketches, and a cryptic line dated July 14, 2019. Heard a hum under granite shelf, not wind. Will check after storm. When that same region suddenly pinged a distress frequency, Park Command thought it was a glitch, maybe old equipment rebroadcasting a reflection. But the pattern repetition matched human activation. 3 bursts, pause, 2 bursts. Within an hour, a helicopter team was airborne with direction-finding antennas. The signal faded, then reappeared near Cloud's Rest Ridge, almost 4,000 feet higher than Daniel's intended route. Terrain too steep for a landing. They logged coordinates and waited for day. Daniel had checked in from the Valley Visitor Center at 8:17 a.m., bought fuel canisters and granola bars, and signed the standard solo hike waiver. Receipts confirmed he left the parking lot by 9:04 a.m. His GoPro last recorded at 10:32 a.m., A wide shot of Mirror Lake mirrored perfectly still, his reflection waving toward the camera. Audio caught him muttering about finding the old mining line. That clip would later go viral under #MirrorLakeMystery, generating thousands of theories, from secret caves to hidden World War II bunkers. Fast forward to that March 2029 evening. 3 college students, Javier Ortiz, Mel Price, and Kayla Yoon, were camping near Sunrise Lakes when their handheld ham radio started picking up faint beeps on the emergency channel. Javier, a communications major, recognized the cadence instantly. "It's not interference," he said in the recovered log. "That's an SOS." They triangulated using their GPS watches, aligning the direction of strongest reception. It pointed west, toward a granite formation locals avoided after dark, a half-collapsed cave system once used by surveyors. Kayla later told reporters, "The sound made the air feel heavy. You'd get 3 beeps, then silence, like someone waiting for you to answer." They radioed base. Within 2 hours, Yosemite Search and Rescue was mobilized again. The first official search in that canyon since Daniel Reese's file had been closed 6 years earlier. Ranger Leary, older now, gray stubble, speaks to camera. "When you hear a distress code from coordinates that match a missing hiker's last ping, you don't sleep, you go." Night footage shows rescuers hiking under floodlights, radios crackling, snow dust swirling like static. By 2 a.m., the beeping had stopped. The canyon fell silent again. Back in her apartment, Leah's phone buzzed with the park alert. She hadn't changed her brother's contact photo in 6 years. It still lit her screen. Daniel, squinting in sunlight, holding his compass up like a coin. She whispered, "You finally called." At dawn, rangers reached the cave mouth where the signal had last echoed. Inside, they found footprints, fresh ones, that didn't belong to the rescue team. Fade to black. The sun had just brushed the rim of Cloud's Rest when the first rescue team reached the cave mouth that the campers had marked on their GPS. Pine shadows lay long across the granite. Their breath came out in white threads. Ranger Tom Leary crouched at the entrance and traced a boot print with his gloved finger. It was sharp, unweathered, tread intact. Not rescue issue. "Size 8 or 9, he said to the body cam. "Recent. No heel drag. Whoever made this wasn't injured." Behind him, SAR lead Maya Cheng tested her radio and called the Valley office. Echo 3 on scene. "We're at the cave portal. Campers bearings check out. Proceeding interior. Copy?" The reply hissed through. "Copy, Echo 3. Distress signal ceased at 0204. Log coordinates and proceed with caution." Leary clicked on his helmet lamp. The cave wasn't a tourist cavern with stalagmites and postcards. It was a surveyor's scar. A fracture in the granite where water and time had bitten the throat through the rock. Big enough for a person to stoop walk. Small enough that granite shrugged you off if you tried to push too quickly. The air carried the dry metal smell of old batteries and stone dust. 3 yards in, Maya raised a hand. The beam of her light found the first sign. 3 dots of reflective tape in an arrow formation on the wall. Cheap bike reflector tape, cut into circles. "Not park installed," she said. "Someone left these." Leary leaned close. A faint graphite smudge sat below the lowest dot. "Wash." The letters hard pressed as though written on a knee. He took a photo. "Whoever it was had a pencil," he said, "and a plan." They moved deeper, counting paces, marking the path with bright flagging. The floor pitched downward. The granite throat narrowed, opened, narrowed again. The temperature fell. At 20 paces, the passage split. The left branch breathed a cold whisper. The right exhaled warm air that smelled of wet canvas. Leary took the right. Maya took the left with a probe camera, snaking it ahead. "Hold," she said a minute later. "Tom, come see this." He shuffled in beside her, shoulders scraping quartz. The camera image quivered on her wrist screen. A small alcove, the floor ashy with dust. In the ash, 3 symbols scratched in a line. 1, 2, 1, 3, then 2, then 1. Leary didn't smile often. He did then briefly, in the lightless throat of granite. 212, he said, same as the beeps. He turned his light toward the adjacent wall. There, in dark pencil, were the words, wait, answer, repeat. Maya recorded the reading. Someone was trying to talk. By mid-morning, the trailhead below buzzed with quiet purpose. Ranger trucks nosed close to the gate. A portable command tent snapped in the breeze. Antenna masts rose like metal pines. A park volunteer handed out paper cups of coffee to a cluster of gray-haired men in technical vests, ham radio operators, who'd come as soon as they heard that a distress code had lit up their frequencies overnight. Among the vehicles, a compact silver sedan door opened, and Leah Reese stepped out, hugging herself against the cold. She wore the expression common to families at scenes like this: alert, contained, refusing to be fragile in public. She carried a small cedar box like it was something alive. Cheng met her at the tape. Leah, hi, Maya, we've spoken. I brought Daniel's notebook, Leah said, opening the cedar lid. Inside, wrapped in a bandana, lay a black write in the rain pad with duct tape on the spine. On the first page, in neat block letters, Trail Echo 19. Do you remember this line? Leah asked, flipping to a July entry. Her finger rested above it. Heard a hum under granite shelf. Not wind. We'll check after storm. Yeah, Maya said. She didn't add that she'd circled that line in red 6 years earlier, then run out of leads anyway. We're going toward a fracture where the campers heard the code. Leah drew a breath. He wouldn't have left marks just anywhere, she said. He marks when he thinks he'll come back, or when he thinks someone else needs to. Then we're reading him right, Maya said. He's talking to us. The cave's right-hand branch widened into a space that felt like a paused breath. Their headlamps caught dull glints, the corners of a mylar blanket, the threadbare gleam of paracord tied between 2 rock spikes at knee height like a handrail. Someone had mapped this corridor for a return. On the floor sat a film canister with a strip of reflective tape around its cap. Maya twisted it open. Inside, a folded scrap of waterproof paper with 6 words. Written so hard that the letters embossed the paper. The hum is air. Follow it. Leary lifted his head. Listen, he said. They turned off their lamps. The dark softened. For a moment, the cave tasted of the battery in your mouth when you touch it to your tongue. Then the sound found them. Not a whistle, not wind, a low thread of air, moving with pressure. An exhale somewhere ahead. The hum, Maya said. They moved toward it. The passageway narrowed to a constriction, a squeeze where granite shouldered you into yourself. Beyond it, the cave turned sharply left. In that bend, Leary's boot knocked something metallic. He knelt. His glove closed on a signal mirror, the kind sold in any outdoor store, scratched to fog. Along one edge, a knife had etched an arrow and 2 letters, L, comma. Leah, Maya said softly. H, he marked the way out to her. Leary turned the mirror over, on the back. He found a date scratched with the same hard hand, 7/16/19. He held it up to the body cam. Documenting, recovered signal mirror with notation. Back at command, the radio volunteers traded guesses. Could be a simple resonant cavity, one said, drawing a box in the air. Airflow through a narrow aperture. You get a Helmholtz effect. It'll make a tone. If it cycles with gusts, you'll hear it like code. Another shook his head. That pattern the kids heard, 3 paws 2, won't happen by accident. That's human. What if it's bounce? A third asked. Old device catches a charge from trickle current, re-emits. Solar panel scrap maybe, or he lowered his voice as Leah walked by, or a person. Leah didn't pause. She walked to the tent flap and stood there, eyes on the granite wall 1,000 yards above, where a faint seam in the rock line hinted at a fracture. The interior team widened the constriction with a hand hoist and wedge, shaving millimeters so cameras could pass without snagging. Granite grated like a chalkboard. Mist from their breath hung in the light. Somewhere beyond, the hum kept time like a metronome. "Camera through," Maya said. The image shook as it passed the squeeze, then steadied in a chamber the size of a delivery van. The floor was strewn with pine needles and twigs, impossible this deep, unless they had been carried by water or by a person on their clothes. At the far wall, the light found the edge of a canvas bag, gray with dust. "Stop," Leary said. "There." They backed out and made the squeeze themselves, one at a time, helmets scraping. Inside, the chamber felt warmer. The air still. Leary crouched by the bag. The zipper had fused to the cloth. He worked a knife under the teeth, freed an inch, two. The smell released was old sun and dirt, the smell of gear that has waited in a truck for a trip that never came. He lifted out items one by one, speaking to the camera for chain of custody. Item 1, energy bar wrappers, brand discontinued 2021. Item 2, folded map, USGS 7.5 minute, Tenaya Canyon quadrangle, notations in pencil. Item 3, dry bag, small, yellow, contents unknown. Item 4, notebook page, torn, with coordinates. Item 5, Polaroid photo packet, rubber banded, undeveloped. Maya met his eyes. "We'll preserve the photo pack for lab," she said. "Light could fog it. Put it back in the dry bag." Leary nodded. He turned the torn notebook page over. On the back was a single line in the same pressed hard handwriting they'd seen on the wall. "Not falling, drifting, two shapes, below." He felt the hair lift at his neck. He had heard that line before, years earlier, in a debrief at a hangar that smelled like hydraulic fluid and paper. Another case he'd watched from a distance. Another brother tracing graphite with his thumb. The freezing, the pressure of the hand. It put a person in the room with them. "Documented," he said, and slid the page into a bag. At 17:10, as shadows rose like water up the cliff, the hum deepened. The ham operator's radios crackled. Then, faintly, the 212 returned. 3 beeps, pause. 2 beeps, longer pause, repeat. Maya pressed her headset tight. Echo 3 to command, signal repeating. Confirm, command. Confirm, repeat received. Strength 1, direction consistent with your location. Copy, we're holding. She turned to the team. "If this is a mechanical emitter, it's responding to pressure changes, outside wind. If it's human, they're hearing us and trying to keep a rhythm." Leary put a hand against the rock. The granite felt like a living thing when it breathed. "Either way," he said, "the source is deeper." They left a glow stick at the chamber, marked a time and arrow, and worked toward another thin seam. This one low to the floor. When they pressed ears to it, the hum became a throat clear. As though sound had flesh. The seam looked too small for a person to pass, but sound had found a way. "We'll need a microborer tomorrow," Maya said. "Air meter. If there's void space beyond and CO2 is safe, we widen." Leary keyed the radio. "Echo 3 to command, we're withdrawing to Bivy. Low risk for flood overnight. Marking our path. Returning 0600. They backed out, flagging tape, winking in their headlamps like breadcrumbs. In the back of her car, Leah spread a blanket and opened the cedar box. The Trail Echo 19 notebook lay like a small door. She turned to a page she hadn't shown the cameras, a page with a coffee stain and 2 doodled arrows. "If you hear me," Daniel had written, "answer with 3, then 2. I'll wait." Leah rested her palm on the ink until it warmed. Through the windshield, she could see the antenna mast blink red against the dark. She wondered if signals knew about time, if they understood that sometimes an answer arrived years late but still mattered. At 8:30, a small battery auger whined against granite. Grit hissed down like sand. The seam widened enough for a snake camera. Maya fed the cable through. The image wobbled, found focus. On the screen, a sloping stone chute bypassed a fallen block and spilled into a wider void. The floor showed scrape marks like someone had tried to climb and had slid back, dragging metal, like a carabiner against rock. In the far right corner, the camera's circle of light touched something man-made, a tin box with a glow stick rubber-banded to the lid, long since bled to clear. "Hold it there," Maya said. "Leary, you seeing this?" He nodded, already sighting the line of approach, like a carpenter measuring a cut. "We can. Widen another 4 centimeters. That'll take us through." They checked air quality with a diffusion sensor shoved into the seam. Oxygen held steady. CO2 rose slightly but within tolerances. No methane. Safe enough with caution. By noon, the seam admitted a person in armor of patience. Maya went first, twisting through on an exhale, ribs scraping. She slid down the stone chute, boots seeking purchase, then dropped the last foot to a flat. "Clear," she said softly. "And you'll want to see this." Leary came behind her. The chamber was larger than the first, its ceiling a low dome polished by centuries of melt. In one wall, a darker oval marked a pit. Beside it, the tin box waited like an offered gift. Maya opened it. Inside lay a cassette tape in a zip bag. Across its label, a name written with a permanent marker that had bled a little. August 1919. Next to it, a second tape, August 2119. Beneath them, a note on a page torn from the same black notebook. "If you can hear me, I can hear you." 3, then 2. "Tell Leah I waited." Leah's name didn't break Maya's voice. She was trained for this, for saying remains and evidence and notification without breaking anything important in herself. Still, she felt the room tilt for a second. The hum threaded the air like a string pulled tight. "Bag it," she said. "Steady hands." Leary moved to the pit. It wasn't deep, just wrong. The rock around it wore rope polish. He played his light down and saw 2 iron rings hammered into a seam, a makeshift anchor. A length of webbing hung there, faded, stitched by hand. It hadn't been placed by the park. He looked back at the tapes. "He recorded something," he said. 2 days apart. Maya nodded. Day 1 at the Ridge Cabin, day 3. She stopped, realizing she'd slipped into a story that wasn't hers. "Let's keep the procedure clean. We'll let the lab reclaim audio." "Copy," Leary said. He crouched and swept the floor with a soft brush. More pine needles, a button from a hiking shirt, a broken pencil chewed smooth at the cap, and one more mirror scratch on the wall. L, the arrow pointing back to the other chamber, to the way out. He spoke into the mic. He was alive here, long enough to make tapes, long enough to mark. He had a message. At 14:10, the thin wind on the ridge shifted. The cave exhaled. Somewhere above, a throat narrowed into a whistle and keened. In the chamber, the sound arrived as a pulse. 3 rises, a pause. 2 rises, a longer pause. Maya watched the radio's needle flicker. "It's not a device," she said, understanding unfurling like a map. "It's airfall, through an aperture." He taught the cave to speak a pattern. Leary frowned. "How?" "Granite has memory if you press the right places," Maya said. She touched the rings at the pit's edge. He could have rigged a flapper, a weighted panel over a narrow slit hung on webbing. Rising ridge wind lifts it. Beep, beep, beep. Then it settles. Pause. Beep, beep. Simple mechanics. Simple enough to last until webbing rots. "Why now?" "Spring pressure," she said. "Temperature gradient. The wind is writing his code for him." Leary looked around the chamber, and for the first time in years, he felt an absence, like a person. The shape of someone sitting here, timing beeps, scratching notes, arranging mirrors and tapes so that a future could find them. He was answering us before we asked, Leary said. They rigged a safety line to the rings and lowered a camera into the pit. The image swung like a pendulum, found a ledge, swung again. On the far wall, the light found a smear of chalk-white dust, finger-dragged in 3 short strokes. A pause, 2 more, and end. 3 and 2, Maya said softly. He left it everywhere he could. Below the ledge, the camera drifted into a deeper drop that the cable could not reach. The light vanished into it like a thrown coin. Maya hauled the camera back up. "We're not going down today," she said. "We widen the entry. We bring a tech team. This pit isn't going to surprise us." Leary nodded. He gathered the box, the tapes, the broken pencil. "We found his cache," he said, "and his voice." The park scheduled a briefing at 1900. A row of cameras faced a ranger podium. The sunset lit the cliff in copper. Leah stood behind the caution line, the cedar box at her feet. Maya stepped to the mic. At approximately 13:20 today, rescue personnel located a chamber within a fracture near Tenaya Canyon. Evidence recovered suggests that missing hiker Daniel Reese, sheltering in 2019, utilized that chamber. Items recovered include navigation aids, a mirror, written notes, and 2 audio cassettes sealed in a container. We are not prepared to comment on the content of these tapes until they are stabilized by our lab. A hand shot up. "Are you close to—" The reporter stopped himself, adjusted. "To making a recovery?" "We're close to answers," Maya said. "We proceed with care." Another asked about the beeps. Maya explained the airflow hypothesis, the cave as an instrument, the mountain playing a code that a man had taught it. "Are you saying he knew someone would hear it?" a woman asked. Maya didn't glance at Leah, though every nerve wanted to. "He planned for the possibility," she said. "He made answering him easy." In a quiet room at the Yosemite Forensic Lab, a technician wiped dust from the cassettes and set them on a warming mat to drive off moisture. The label ink had bled, but the plastic felt intact. The reels moved with a pencil twist. "No sticky stall. Dot. Lucky vintage," the tech said to the log camera. "Late 90s Radio Shack. They survive better than the fancy ones." He clipped one cassette into a deck the lab kept for evidence from other years, other holes in the world. He didn't hit play. Not yet. Procedure, catalog, photograph, witness signatures, audio isolation. He numbered the tapes DR1 and DR2. On the intake form, under owner presumed, he wrote Reese, Daniel. Dawn at the cave. The seam had become a door. The team moved with the careful speed people use around more than rock, with the spare gravity of those who know that hope, left unattended, floods. They fitted a sound sensor at the seam to record the air pulses across a day. They ran a fiber line to the chamber so command could watch in real time. They bolted a safe ladder into the pit's entry, not trusting old rings. At 10:15, Maya's radio chirped, lab to Echo 3. "We've stabilized DR1. Audio present. Quality, moderate to good. You might want to hear the first line before we proceed with the pit." Maya glanced at Leary. He nodded. She stepped back from the seam to a patch of sun and pressed the ear cups on firmly. A click. Tape hiss like far rain. Then a man's voice, dry from breathing cave air. Calm, like someone coaching himself to stay within the boundaries of his plan. "This is Daniel Reese," it said. "If you found this, then the cave is still answering." Maya closed her eyes for a beat. When she opened them, she caught Leah standing just beyond the tape line above, not hearing, not yet, but somehow knowing. "Thank you, lab," Maya said. "Hold the rest for chain of custody review. We're going to the pit." She rejoined Larry, who stared down into the dark the way sailors stare at water, seeing not the surface, but the weight of what it holds. "Ready?" he asked. Maya clipped into the lime. "Ready," she said. She tested the rung with her boot, then started down. Leah climbed partway to the cave with an escort and stopped at the last boulder before the tape line. She set the cedar box on her knee and, without opening it, rested her palm against the stone. The granite felt warm where the afternoon had held it. She thought of her brother in the dark, setting a mirror at an angle, timing beeps to a pattern that would touch a stranger's radio years later. She thought of answers traveling slowly, like roots seeking water in rock. She didn't cry. She let her hand be the whole of the message. If he could still feel the mountain, if mountains remembered, maybe it would carry the heat back down to wherever the voices went when they lowered their own. Below her, the wind shifted. The cave sang, 3 soft rises, a pause, then 2. Somewhere in the dark, rope creaked, and steel rang once gently like a bell. Fade to black. At 10:27 a.m., the air at the mouth of the cave was steady and cool. Ranger Maya Cheng checked her harness one last time, clipped into the line anchored to the iron rings Daniel Reese had driven 6 years earlier, and began the slow descent into the pit. Above her, Tom Leary called out measurements like a metronome. 6 meters, 8, 10. The rope fed through his gloved hands. Each scrape of fabric on stone sounded like a heartbeat. Halfway down, Maya paused and looked up. The entrance had shrunk to a coin of light framed by granite. Dust drifted past like snow. Her radio crackled. Echo 3, this is command. Oxygen steady. CO2 levels holding. Proceed. She tapped her headset twice in acknowledgement. The chamber widened. The beam of her headlamp caught rope polish on the walls. Pale streaks where something heavy had rubbed repeatedly. At 12 meters, her boot touched a slanted shelf of damp rock. Below it, darkness fell away again, deeper still. She swung her light. There, a canvas tarp, stiff with age, pinned beneath a fallen boulder. The fabric rippled faintly, moved by the same wind that had taught the cave to speak. I see fabric and structural debris, she told the radio. Copy, command said. Document and proceed carefully. She crouched beside the tarp, brushed dust away. The corner of a red paracord bracelet poked out, the kind hikers made from utility rope. It was knotted in 3 short ties, then 2 longer ones. 3, then 2. The same rhythm, the same code. The rest of the team widened the opening above until Leary could descend beside her. When his boots hit the floor, the rocks sighed under their combined weight. Together, they cleared stones away from the tarp. Beneath it lay what had once been a sleeping bag, now faded to slate blue and crusted with mineral dust. Inside, a narrow bundle shaped the fabric, the length of a man who'd made himself small against the cold. Leary knelt without speaking. He'd done this before. Too many times, in too many valleys, but something about this silence was different. It wasn't grief. It was continuation. The mountain had carried this message for 6 years and was only now handing it back. Documenting, Maya said. Presumed remains located. Position, supine. Artifacts in situ. She set the camera on a tripod. The footage would later show their lights, steady, their movements slow, the small things left untouched. A tin cup, a capped pen, a faded photo half buried in silt. Maya picked up the photo with tweezers. It showed a woman standing beside a red Jeep, sunlight cutting across her face. Leah, from before the years of searching. On the back, in Daniel's handwriting, North Star, in case I lose mine. She slid it carefully into an evidence sleeve. Leary noticed a glint near the sleeping bag. He brushed away grit and lifted a voice recorder, the same model as the cassettes found earlier. The batteries had corroded, but the tape door was closed and labeled in pencil, August 22nd, 19 final. Third tape, he said quietly. They sealed it in plastic, logged it, and handed it up the rope to the retrieval team above. Every movement felt like part of a ritual, the respectful unmaking of silence. When the chamber was stable, they called in forensic technicians to assist with the lift. The body, still partially protected by the sleeping bag, was transferred to a canvas stretcher. its straps creaking softly. As it rose toward the light, a faint gust passed through the cavern, setting the mirrors on the wall trembling. The beeps returned, 3, then 2, echoing until they dissolved into the open sky. Hours later, in a small room at the Yosemite Forensic Lab, the team gathered around a reel-to-reel deck. The 2 recovered cassettes, OG 1919 and OG 2119, had been cleaned, digitized, and synchronized with the 3rd tape marked OG 2219. Leah sat beside the table, hands clasped so tightly her knuckles went white. Maya sat opposite her, headset draped around her neck. Leary stood near the window, hat in his hands. The technician pressed play. A hiss filled the room, followed by Daniel's voice, thin but steady. Daniel, day 1 at the Ridge cabin. Generator running. Sounds like a freight train when it kicks in. The cave breathes with it. Air moves through the floor. Maybe that's why they left this place. Too noisy. But noise means power. Power means heat. If anyone finds this, I'm heading east toward the sound. Static. Then tape 2 clicked in. Daniel, storm came in early. Tried to reach the ridge but slipped into a wash. Lights fading. Found a cavity in the granite. Feels like air moving through it. Like lungs. I think I can survive here if I ration fuel. I set mirrors, left marks. If Leah ever hears this, 3, then 2. That's me calling. Don't come alone. There was a pause. A scrape of pencil on paper. The faint drip of water. Daniel. Something hums at night. Maybe the mountain. Maybe me. Then tape 3. August 21st, 19. The final entry. The sound of wind filled the speakers. Rhythmic, mechanical. Daniel's breathing came through shallow and slow. Daniel. This might be my last one. The cave hums when the wind's right. I tried to make it louder, to let it carry. I think I built something that can answer. If you hear 3, then 2, it's just me saying I'm still here. Tell Leah I waited. The tape hissed for 20 more seconds, then stopped. No scream, no panic, just the quiet dignity of someone turning sound into a bridge. By late afternoon, rangers carried the stretcher out of the canyon. The press had gathered at the trailhead, but Maya requested that the path remain clear. Leah walked behind them, one hand on the stretcher handle, the other clutching Daniel's compass, the one she'd found years ago in his old hiking bag. As they reached the valley floor, the wind shifted again through the cliffs, and for a brief moment, the same pattern whistled faintly across the air. 3 notes, a pause, 2. Reporters whispered. Microphones dropped. Leah smiled through tears. Still here, she whispered. A week later, the official statement was released. The remains had been positively identified through dental records and DNA. Cause of death: exposure and hypothermia following entrapment. Estimated survival after incident: 5 to 7 days. Investigators concluded that Daniel had slipped while exploring a narrow fracture, found temporary shelter in the lower chamber, and survived by using his equipment to redirect airflow for warmth and ventilation. The distress beacons, recorded in 2029, were likely caused by residual mechanical oscillation of the flapper device he'd rigged to signal rescuers, a creation that had endured for 6 years until a new gust pattern reactivated it. That summer, a small wooden sign appeared near the Tenaya Canyon overlook, the Reese Echo. Beneath it, a plaque read, "In memory of Daniel Reese, 1985 to 2019. He taught the mountain to answer." Visitors often stop there, curious about the name. Some say that on certain mornings, when the wind blows from the east, you can still hear the faint pulse echo through the granite. 3, then 2, before the sound fades back into the valley. Leah comes once a year. She brings flowers and a small handheld radio. She never speaks to the press. She sets the radio on the rock and waits for the static. When the faint beeps come, She answers with her fingers on the stone. Tapping 3, then 2. In 2035, a group of geology students revisiting the site found the flapper mechanism Daniel had engineered. A sheet of aluminum fixed by paracord over a vent shaft, balanced with stones. Each gust of wind lifted the panel 3 times, paused, then twice. The pattern of a man trying to speak through air and time. The students filmed it for their thesis, calling it the wind telegraph. The clip went viral, amassing millions of views and hundreds of comments from hikers and families who'd lost loved ones in wilderness searches. One comment, pinned at the top, came from an account named @LeahRemembers. He wasn't lost. He was waiting to be heard. In the backcountry of Yosemite, the line between silence and memory is thin. Daniel Reese crossed it and found a way back, not through rescue, but through resonance. 6 years after his final breath, the wind itself became his voice. We chase answers in mountains, but sometimes the mountains are the ones answering us. The camera pans upward, sunlight flooding the valley, pine trees swaying in rhythm with an unseen pulse. 3 soft whistles echo once more, fading into the wind. Fade to black.